Well, that is Prime Minister Narendra Modi right there at the ASEAN summit. Moving on to the other big story that we're tracking right here, Atmanirbhar boost, the economic boost 3.0. The government injected some much-needed fiscal stimulus into the economy amidst massive slowdown and recessionary pressure. The Finance Minister announced a fresh tranche of Atmanirbhar Bharat package. The package involves subsidies for companies that will make fresh hirings. She also announced tax relief for buyers of home worth 2 crore rupees and more cash for the developers for a part of the festive bonanza. The government also announced a support scheme for stressed sectors. An additional 1-year time to repay credit was also announced for the sectors hit by the pandemic. The government announced a 900 crore rupees research and development grant for the COVID vaccine. In a bid to boost demand, the government is also planning to infuse 18,000 crore rupees to make urban homes. A fertilizer SOP of 65,000 crore rupees was also announced for 14 crore farmers.
The new scheme, which we are now calling as Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar Yojana, is being launched so that we incentivize creation of new employment opportunities so that the recovery phase benefits from it. What does this mean? It means that every EPFO registered establishment, those registered establishment, if they take new employees who never were covered by EPFO earlier, if they take them on, or if they bring in employees who had lost their jobs between 1st March 2020 and 30th September 2020, even they will be counted as new employees, although they may have an EPFO number earlier. Both will benefit from this. I'll go back to saying, go to the next slide, but not now, next slide. If I do, when I move over to that, I'll explain as to what kind of benefit will be given. But EPFO registered organizations, if they bring in new employees, new employee being those who didn't have an EPFO number earlier, or new employee being those who lost the job between 1st March and 30th September of this year, will all be counted as new employee who join or who get recruited by EPFO registered organization. They will get some benefits. The benefits I'll explain in a minute, but this is the new scheme which we are launching now. This will be effective from 1st October 2020. So EPFO registered organizations which recruit new employees from 1st October will be covered. They will be covered for the next 2 years. The earlier scheme covered for 3 years. Now it will cover for 2 years. You may recall that during the Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, during the lockdown that we announced, 116 districts were brought together where the migrant laborers had gone back. 25,000 was the minimum number of migrant laborers who had reached those districts, for whom money was spent, and 37,543 crores have been spent till date on that. That scheme ended as of October 31st, if you remember correct. That was only for a limited number of days. We have spent that kind of money in those 116 districts. Now, this Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana had brought together the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme and also the Garib Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Both of them were also brought together so that rural employment can be encouraged. You remember that in the budget we had announced something like 61,000 crores for Manrega. We also gave a 40,000 crore in addition during the Atmanirbhar Bharat 1.0 announcement. So with that announcement of 40,000 crore, Manrega had crossed 1 lakh crore outlay. Now what we are saying is also to underline the fact that out of that 1 lakh crore, 61,000 during the BE, 40,000 during Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan 1.0, both put together over 1 lakh. Of that, 73,504 crores have already been spent, and 251 crore person days of employment were generated. 251 crore person days of employment was generated, and this is in the informal sector. Obviously, people getting covered there are informal workers. Now we announce, this 9th announcement is for another additional outlay of 10,000 crore. This will be part of the PM Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana. It can be used for Manrega, it can be used for Gram Sadak Yojana, to ensure that the rural informal sector doesn't suffer for opportunities. So this money goes there. This will accelerate the rural economy.
Rajiv Dubey and Rahul Srivastava both joining us live on this story. Rajiv, first I'm coming to you. The Finance Minister says that the total stimulus that the government has provided along with the RBI is coming to 15% of the GDP. What are the arguments at the moment for and against this kind of a stimulus being meted out by the government?
So Chaiti, right through this start of the stimulus, the biggest argument has been whether it's going to help consumption, because eventually what we need in the economy is demand generation in the economy, which will finally lead to better bottom lines and top lines for companies, and which will finally lead to higher employment and greater employment. And that has been consistent, issue as far as the stimulus packages have been concerned. The arguments have been against about the credit guarantee scheme, for instance. That is, about 60% of the credit guarantee scheme has been sanctioned. Only half of the credit guarantee scheme has been utilized till date. All along, it has been the argument whether whatever the government is doing right now will aid consumption at all or not. Because if you look at the 3 or 4 engines of the economy which are there, basically the exports engine has not been functioning for 7 years. Private investment engine has not been functioning for 6-7 years. The public expenditure was the only engine of the economy which is working right now, and consumption, which was working until about a year back, has also started to stutter. So the problem that has started and has become grave has happened largely because of the consumption engine failing, and that is because of lack of faith in the economy, or the fact that people are losing jobs. Apart from that, what was happening is that the public expenditure also, because taxation for the tax collection for the government has been impacted so badly. Even public expenditure in the past 1 year, both at the center and the states, has been very badly impacted. And so the government is not spending as much on public expenditure, creation of public assets, which was supposed to typically create greater demand in the economy in times of crisis. And that is what this stimulus is trying to do. For instance, if you look at the Manrega, there are two ways you can split the stimulus. One is towards the farmers and the poor, and the second is towards the industry. The consumption part of it I'll come to, but for the farmers, there is the 65,000 crore additional subsidy, and for the poor and the farmers, there is also the Manrega 10,000 crore additional deployment, additional allocation, even though the entire 1 lakh crore is still to be utilized. So there is still 35,000 crore more to be utilized from Manrega in this year alone.
Absolutely.
And then for the industry, you're seeing the PLI scheme that the government introduced yesterday.
Yes.
Again, this is an initiative which will take a long time for it
Hold
to
on to your
fructify.
thoughts right there, Rajiv. I'm going to quickly also go across to Rahul Srivastava right there. Rahul, as Rajiv was mentioning, that there needs to be a fair amount of boost that the consumption side needs to go through at the moment, because that's going through a slump. It's in a sort of a limbo for the past 1 year. Each time the government comes out with stimulus like that, there is fair amount of hysteria. But then again, is the least common denominator even benefiting, and is it even aiding the consumption cycle that needs the much needed restart?
Chaiti, when you say that in terms of hysteria, there is actually what the government has been battling is lukewarm responses. If you see the kind of incentives that the government had announced, which are not direct benefits, but indirect incentivization, the response has been, as Rajiv also said, as far as the credit guarantee line scheme was concerned, only 50% of the total scheme target has been utilized, and rest the government has been announcing, in fact, opening of the criteria of the people categories of people who can actually avail of that opportunity. Now, what the government sources are saying, say for example, if you see the announcements today and earlier, MNREGA, the EPFO benefits in terms of jobs, that's one major announcement.
Yes.
Primarily because it will ease the burden of the MSME, boost employment. These are all indirect measures. Now, the problem here is, one, that the government couldn't have announced a lot of measures earlier because industry, real estate and a lot of those elements was still under a sense of lockdown.
Yeah.
So till it was opened up, the government couldn't have announced incentives because that would have been wasted.
Okay.
That real incentive could have been utilized. The second important element is
Yes.
that the government is caught in a bind because any cash dole out which is being given today is not being used in the market.
Yes.
It is being put into saving accounts. If
Yes.
one goes through the RBI bank accounts,
Yes.
you will find that savings are at all-time high, not just in an Aam Aadmi account. If you see the
And this is despite the
Pradhan Mantri-
interest rate being that low.
one point
And
I'd
the
like
whole
to make.
idea of the interest rate being low is that people end up spending and giving a boost to the consumption cycle. And that's exactly, thank you so much, Rahul and Rajiv, for joining us. We'll track the story in much detail.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.